Today is the Steelers Talk mailbag, filmed on Wednesday during the Steelers Talk live show. If you're watching this and it's not Wednesday, that means you missed the live show, but that's okay because we still got Steelers questions coming for you here on today's show. But before I answer your questions, join the most interactive Steelers community here on the platform by clicking that subscribe button right now. We have weekly live shows where we have mailbags every single week so I can answer your questions. And then also we have live watch parties for every single Steelers game that's going to be coming up this season. So make sure you join our community here. If you want a place to kick it with your Yinzers on game day this year, this is the place for you. Click that subscribe button for me right now. And then we got a $50 super chat from my man Andrew Longoria, a Gold Club member, saying, two Steelers questions for you. Do you think Calvin Austin III will overtake Allen Robinson for the slot? And does Jones have enough skill to surpass Moore? So let's start with the first question there. And I think that, Allen Robinson and Calvin Austin III, they're going to be splitting a lot of reps this year. I think to start, it's going to be mostly Allen Robinson on those early downs because he's a bigger wide receiver. He's a better blocker, obviously. And, he's really good at doing like the underneath sort of stuff, the choice routes underneath, where he's not necessarily a deep threat like Calvin Austin III is, but he's going to be able to get stuff going underneath while George Pickens and Deontay Johnson are kind of your deep threats on the outside. But I think Calvin Austin III will play quite a bit this year, especially in those obvious passing situations where you don't really need an underneath receiver like Allen Robinson and you don't need his run blocking. And then also in those four wide receiver sets. If Matt Canada ever wants to spread out the offense, I think that fourth receiver is going to be Calvin Austin III, and that puts another deep threat on your offense. Then part two to that question. Does Jones have enough skill to surpass Moore? So I think that he does. I think that there's a reason why you traded up for this guy in the NFL draft. He is very, very skilled as a player. It's just he needs some refinement, right? He just needs to refine those skills in pass protection. He's very athletic. He's already a really good run blocker. If he can develop the pass protection aspect of his game by the end of camp, I'm looking at Mr. Broderick Jones as the starting left tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then we got a $20 super chat from my man Brian Love, another Gold Club member, who says, who do you guys think ends up being the CB1 for this team by the end of the year? I still think it's going to be Patrick Peterson. I think Joey Porter Jr. has next, but man, Patrick Peterson, people forget how good this guy still is in the National Football League. He had 5 interceptions with the Minnesota Vikings last year, and very an instincts-based defense. They played kind of a Fangio-style off-coverage type of defense there in Minnesota last year, and that's really where Patrick Peterson thrived. Now here with the Pittsburgh Steelers, you might say right away, hey, that's kind of a mismatch because Mike Tomlin likes to run a lot of man, and Patrick Peterson's getting older and his physical gifts are starting to wane a little bit, but it's looking like Pat Pete, he's going to be playing a lot of nickel this year. He's going to be playing a lot of safety this year too. It seems like Mike Tomlin is really going to be using him as a roamer in the middle of this defense. And I think that Patrick Peterson is going to probably lead this group in interceptions this year. I really like Levi Wallace as well. He's a very solid starter. And I do think Joey Porter Jr. will show us a lot of good things in his rookie season. But when it comes to that first number one corner on this depth chart, I still go with Pat Pete. Next question comes from Terry Bradshaw. He says, with Kendrick Green struggling, should the Steelers sign a backup center before the season starts? I wouldn't hate it. Terry, I definitely wouldn't hate it. Kendrick Green has obviously not played well as the backup center. You've got Spencer Anderson, who is taking some reps there at center right now. And, neither one of them has looked particularly good. Now, you do have Isaac Seumalo, James Daniels, and Nate Herbig, who all have experience playing center. So if something happens to Mason Cole, they could figure something out at the center position without Green or Spencer Anderson. But right now, there's some pretty decent former centers on the free agent market. Right now, Ben Jones, former Tennessee Titans starting center, is still on the free agent market, and he's really good, man. He only allowed 1 sack last year. He's been a very solid starting center in this league for a long time. A Pro Bowler is still available on the free agent market. Now, will he take a backup role? I highly doubt it, but I definitely wouldn't hate it if the Steelers added somebody in free agency. But now let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Should the Steelers sign another backup center before the start of the 2023 season? Give me a yes or give me a no. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. Take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question with a yes or a no. Then we got a $50 super chat from my mother, Patty Gustafson. Thank you so much. Much obliged, Mother. Thank you so much for your $50. And, of course, if you're watching the Steelers Talk Live show, that means I'm getting slapped. Then we got a $20 super chat from my man, Andrew Longoria. Again, says, looking at the skills, would you like to see Sullivan solidify his spot as the slot corner, or would you like to see him replaced by Elijah Riley? Andrew, I want to see the best player get the position. And right now, it seems like Elijah Riley is making a ton of plays at Steelers training camp, whether it be getting interceptions, whether it be pass deflections, whether it be getting sacks on corner blitzes. He's really good at that as well. Whether it be run defense, he's probably way better than Chandon Sullivan at this point in run defense. And right now, if I'm Mike Tomlin and I'm looking at what Elijah Riley is bringing to the table, I'm looking at that guy. I'm saying I might go with him over the veteran Chandon Sullivan. So it's definitely going to be an interesting preseason battle to watch out for here. But, right now, I kind of like Elijah Riley's chances. And then we got one from Mo Love, another Steelers Talk Gold Club member, saying, been watching our left tackle, Spencer Anderson, and he's been showing up. How are you guys feeling about this dude? Now, right now, based on what I'm hearing from Latrobe, he is the number 2 right tackle on this team right now. Right tackle, not left tackle. Apparently he's been really impressive as a tackle, less impressive as an interior offensive lineman. That's what I'm hearing from Latrobe, but he can play all 5 offensive line positions. He's impressed in some different positions, not as much in others. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can make the final 53-man roster. He's definitely got the versatility that Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin are looking for. But the question is he going to have the skill necessary to keep him here long-term on the 53? Then we got a question from CM Punk here. It says, do you think Pickens will have a 1,200-plus yard season? Yes. I'm going to say yes on that. I think George Pickens is going to have a breakout season. He had another catch today, today being Wednesday at practice, where one-handed catch over a receiver on the sideline, and he got the toe tap in there. I mean, this dude is just built different. He is a freaking alien. And I think that, with a guy like Kenny Pickett throwing him the football who's really accurate, I think George Pickens is going to explode this year, and he's going to become a true bona fide superstar wide receiver in the league, and I think he smashes that 1,200-yard mark. Then we got one from Jack Lambert here. It says Steelers defense is top 3 this year, or if the Steelers is top defense or top 3 defense this year, do you think Terrell Austin will get hired as an NFL head coach? Maybe. He's only been in the position for 2 years. I thought he did a really good job last year, kind of adjusting without TJ Watt. Of course, the cornerback room was dealing with a lot of injuries. And I think he's a really smart dude. Now, Tomlin disciples haven't really gotten the kind of love that maybe the Shanahan tree or the McVay tree have gotten. Bruce Arians ended up winning a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I'm looking at a guy like Terrell Austin. He's a really smart dude. And I think if they're top 3 this year, I think teams would be dumb not to look at him as a potential head coaching candidate. Now, let me know, true or false, down here in the comments section. The Steelers have the best defense in the NFL heading into 2023. Type T if you think that statement is true, or if you think it's false, give me an F down there in the comments section. Our next question from Steelers Dad here. He says, do you think we will keep Kendrick Green even as a fullback? I think it's going to – I really don't know, Steelers Dad. Kendrick Green is one of those big question marks that is on this roster. He is doing not so well at center. He really didn't play well at center in that preseason game. He had a bad snap. He had a big holding penalty. It just wasn't a good night for Kendrick at the center position. He's been working out with the fullbacks, and, I think that's probably his most valuable position, if I'm being completely honest with you. He can run over guys. He's an athletic dude for his size. And I think that, I reminisce about the 85 Bears with the refrigerator coming in, right? Perry coming in, that big boy coming in on those 3rd and shorts at the goal line, getting those touchdowns. Kendrick Green could be that type of player for the Pittsburgh Steelers if they wanted to use him in that way, but will there be enough room for him to carry an extra fullback on this team in addition to Connor Heyward? I'm not too sure about that. Then we got a question from Pyro Scheme 7-4, and he says, will Keanu Benton start week 1? I don't think so. Now, I think that, I think he's going to be a really good player for the Steelers long term. Just want to get that out there. I think I compared his game to Cam Heyward coming out of the draft, and lo and behold, the Steelers take him. Now, I think that he's going to start off his career as a nose tackle. Cam's the 3 technique, a pass rusher first. But I think that Keanu is a really good run defender. He showed his strength, that pure strength that he has last week against the Buccaneers, really showed out in that game. But right now, Montravius Adams, apparently the Steelers really like him. And then Braden Fajoku is an absolute beast against the run right now. It's looking like both of those guys are going to end up making the roster. And it's looking like the Steelers are going to carry 3 nose tackles on the final 53. Now, that's definitely interesting to me. But when I look at Keanu Benton and I look at how much they like the other 2 nose tackles on this team, I don't think a first-week start for Benton is going to be in the cards. But towards the end of the season, it's all fair game. Then we got a question from Elliptic6 here. He says, do you think Matt Canada's offense can keep up with the high-flying offenses in the AFC, or do you think we will rely on our defense to calm the storms? I think it's going to be very much reliant on defense this year. I think Matt Canada has already said this, where, the recipe for success for this team towards the end of last season was run the football, play elite defense. That's what they did, and it almost got them to the playoffs, right? So I think that's going to be the focus going into the year. I do think the passing offense is going to be better than it was last year. Because I think Kenny Pickett's going to take that step forward. George Pickens is going to take a step into superstardom this year, in my opinion. I'm still a believer in Deontay Johnson. Really like Calvin Austin III. Really like Pat Freiermuth. So I think the offense will be fine this year, but is it going to be top 5 in the National Football League in yardage and touchdowns and all this stuff? I don't think so. I think that what I'll say is this. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense is going to lead to a lot of wins for the black and gold. That's my prediction. I'm not too sure what it's going to look like in terms of stats, but the only stat that I really care about in the end is wins and losses, and I think the Steelers are going to have a lot of W's in 2023. Then we got a $20 super chat from Gold Club member Brian Love. And he says, I heard about Nate Herbig's shoulder injury today. That being said, how bad or not have you heard that the injury is, and how does that shift and or affect our O-line depth? So what I've heard about Nate is that it's not super serious, that he's going to be back within the next couple days. He might not play this Saturday against the Buffalo Bills, but I'm hearing that he's going to be good to go for week 1, and he's absolutely still expected to make the final 53-man roster. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of relief there, Brian. Right now, the one I'm a little bit more intrigued by is Larry Ogunjobi, who's in a walking boot right now. He's not practicing with the team. Is that injury maybe a little bit more serious than we're being led on to believe? I'm definitely interested to see how these injuries kind of play out, because we know Mike Tomlin and the Steelers are pretty secretive about this stuff at this point in the year. Then we got one from Matt Canada here, and he goes, all of the players the Steelers have signed this week, which one is the most likely to make the final roster? So they signed Neville Clark, Lavert Hill, both of those guys are corners, and then yesterday, Xavier Valladay. Am I saying that right, Jeremy Chuggs? He's my producer today, as well as our Texans host here at Chat Sports. Just picked him off of waivers from the Houston Texans, and he's been looking really good in camp. He had a diving catch in practice today, which is really, really fun. And, but I will say this. I think the person that's most likely to make the 53-man roster is actually cornerback Lavert Hill. He was a first-team All-Big Ten player twice at the University of Michigan. He was a third-team All-American his last year there with the Wolverines, and he's very athletic. He was All-XFL this spring. Very athletic dude. It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if he rose up the ranks here in these last couple weeks and snuck into the 53-man roster, especially because guys like James Pierre have had some ups and downs this training camp. We've seen guys like Luke Barku have tackling issues. Madre Harper's had some coverage issues. So maybe a guy like Lavert Hill, who was all XFL this spring, has a really nice pedigree for somebody that was picked up this late in the process, maybe he sneaks on and gets a 53-man roster spot. Now, do me a favor here and like today's video. If you're feeling generous and you want to help us out here at Steelers Talk, we put a ton of work in giving you guys the best damn Steelers coverage for free here on YouTube. So we'd really appreciate it if you click that thumbs up icon. Next question from Kevin Reed here, and he says, do you think Calvin Austin III will have 1,000 yards receiving this year? No, I don't think he gets up to that point. Now, do I think he could eventually become a 1,000-yard type receiver? Yes. The reason why I don't think he's going to get to a 1,000 this year is because I don't think he's going to get the snaps, right? I think especially early in the season, Allen Robinson is going to get a lion's share of the snaps in the slot. Calvin will be more of a gadget player, more of a rotational piece. And, hopefully as the season moves on, Calvin can get on the field more often. But I think expecting, a really consistent 1,000-yard type season from this guy might be a little bit too high of an expectation, but I definitely think he's going to have some nice splash plays for the Steelers this year. Then we got one from Damian Roy. He says, we will be the dark horse in the AFC. Stamp that. Oh, yeah, man. I appreciate you, Damian Roy. 100% agree. If Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett are the real deal, the Steelers are going to be the dark horse team in the AFC for 2023. All right, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Really do appreciate all the support. Make sure you click that subscribe button because we got more Steelers content coming your way leading up to Week 1 versus the 49ers. So if you want to become an expert on the 2023 Pittsburgh Steelers, this is the place for you. Click that subscribe button for me right now.